On today's episode, part 2 of our live post-draft extravaganza.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 1101 of Locked On Canadiens. As you know, we are your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day. My name is Laura Sab, also known as The Active Stick, and today I am joined by Scott Matlove, Habs Eyes on the Prize, and Ian Boisvert of the Build Podcast, where I'm about to show you part 2 of our post-draft extravaganza. You do want to stay tuned until the end because there is a very special announcement coming up.
And with that, I guess we should kind of transition and, winners and losers from the NHL draft here. I'm putting the Habs in the winner category. You can't stop me. And if you try to, it's my podcast. I do what I want, pending Laura's approval, of course. San Jose, it goes in the winner circle because they should have with the picks that they had, but I think they had a very good draft. And I thought both Calgary and Utah had a good draft for other reasons, which we will get to after we conclude the actual draft talk here. But I thought Calgary had a very good draft overall too. I think Zane Parek's very good. I think Matt Vagridin is very good. And then they got Andrew Basha, who was one of my draft crushes in this as well. And then added Jacob Battaglia as they just continue to collect Italians, apparently. But for a team that is going to be rebuilding, Calgary did a pretty good job for themselves here. They're going in my winner circle almost immediately.
What about Minnesota, Scott? I think you said Minnesota. Sorry, I cut you off, Ian.
I was gonna throw it over to you. See what you had.
Yeah. I personally want to talk about the losers real quick. Just because every year, death taxes and the Ottawa Senators making inexplicable decisions in the NHL draft. This is the 7th year in a row that they do this?
And Pierre McGuire's not even there. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They had 6 total picks, 1 in round 1, 1 in round 2, 3 in round 4, and 1 in round 5. Their second pick is someone that they described as one of the most undisciplined players in the SHL. Here's the thing is he's a nasty piece of work. He's 6'7". The EP guide says an endless lust for violence. This is a player who actively seeks it out, though. We talked about smart
violence or is it dumb violence is the question.
No, it's probably rookie tournament headshot violence. If I had to guess, that's the Ottawa Senators MO.
It is the perfect Ottawa Senators pick in that this is a kid who does not know how to turn that switch off when the time comes. He has a very promising defenseman skill set, but he cannot turn off the penalties. These are penalty numbers from a European league, remember, where there's not usually high amounts of penalty minutes. Going back to 21-22, 78 penalty minutes in 26 games, 75 penalty minutes in 21 games. 24 and 16, 103 in 36 games in all of his under 20 or his under 18 games for Sweden this year, 22 games, 7 total points, 77 penalty minutes. He put up 20 penalty minutes in 7 games at the under 18 tournament. Stop taking penalties. He got tossed from a couple of games because he can't help himself. And like Laura said, it's so Ottawa Senators. You reached on Yakimchuk in the first, he scored more goals than Reinbacher has in his entire career. Yeah, because he's playing in the WHL against some kid named Caden from, Moose Knuckle, Alberta. And Reinbacher's playing in one of the hardest pro leagues in Europe.
Also, it's not Reinbacher's job to score goals. His job
Laura,
is to
you're
keep
speaking
the puck
logic
out of the
here. We're speaking anyway.
Out of the net, sorry, not out of the name.
The Ottawa Senators, they'll eventually get this figured out as soon as they get rid of Pierre Dorian. Oh, wait, I'm hearing now that they already did that, and they have a brand new front office, and they're still doing dumb things like this. This is a systemic issue in that organization. Dude, I was thinking about this earlier today. I'm thinking about the Canadiens' trajectory now in their division, right? Who scares me when the Canadiens are going to be the team that's the best version of their current selves? Tampa's probably going to be falling off by then. Boston's probably going to be pretty quiet by then. Florida might be on their way. Buffalo don't scare me. Not yet, anyway. Detroit doesn't scare me. Not yet, anyway. The Ottawa Senators are not scary right now. They might get to that point, but like we're already hearing, rumblings about Kachuk, about Brady Kachuk might wanting out. So like I'm not scared of these guys. Like the getting Demidov was like a bulletproof vest for me this week. Like I'm not worried about because Ottawa's still doing Ottawa things. Like at least we can say Montreal learned a lesson from last year, or at least last year they had Demidov in mind when they said, let's take the defenseman now because we know we're going to be in a position to get him next year. So
The big thing with Pierre Dorian, in case you missed the NHL Network draft, apparently he's dead now.
I did see that. That's awesome.
In which I guess the real loser in all of the NHL draft stuff will be us, in which I want to say it was Sam Cosentino, because of course it probably was.
Yeah.
The late Senators GM Pierre Dorian, and all I could think was, did I miss something? Because I know he got
no, they
fired.
killed him. That's how they got rid of him, is they killed him. Yeah.
They threw him in the Rideau Canal and just hid the body. Yeah, so the real loser at everything is day 2 of the NHL draft coverage on NHL Network, because it is just the Sportsnet
It's terrible.
Is abysmal. Sam Cosentino sucks. If anyone has played Fallout New Vegas and has run into the character Fantastic working at the power plant, that is Sam Cosentino for hockey prospects, which I could explain this, but I can't because of the language involved in meeting this character. But just trust me on this. You have just talking while picks are flying off the board at the second round. I don't know who's being picked. You cut to commercial and don't leave the tracker up.
At the end of the second round, they went to commercial and we came back and there were 6 picks off the board. Like, what are they doing? I was like, you're the NHL Network. Your one job is to broadcast this draft. How did you miss it? It was like the same thing as Scott. I don't know if you watched the final on ESPN, but like Barkov goes to skate with the cup for the first time and he skates out of frame before he lifts it above his head. ESPN didn't show Barkov holding the cup over his head for the first time. They completely missed it. I was like watching it. I'm like, how do you blow that? It's the same thing with this. You're going to a commercial at the end of the second round and we're going to miss a bunch of picks. Like that's inexcusable for a network that the league not even practically, they own it. It's their league. It's their channel.
It's rough. Like I didn't mind the first night, despite being exposed to John Butcher-Gross for a couple of hours. Like I thought the first night was very good. And also full credit, I laughed at the NHL when they did this. Sphere was incredible. Yeah. Legitimately one of the coolest things they've ever done. I think that's incredible, the way the work they did there. It made me jealous that I will not get to go see a Dead and Company show there because I don't have the time or the money to do so. But a rare, actual, gigantic W for the NHL with the Sphere idea with this. Hard for me to not the pictures and the videos I feel like would not do it justice. That if they were to announce they're going back to Sphere again at some other point, I would absolutely buy tickets to go. Seemed like an out of this world experience.
And that's the thing that kind of sucks too, is that, we're not going to get this for at least the next few years, right? They've decided to go to the format of like what the NFL does, I guess. No, it's not the NFL. It's like
both the NFL and NBA.
Yep.
Yeah. Where like everybody just stays in their own house and does the picks and trades from there, which like takes a huge aspect of the fun of it out of it. But I hope they bring this back. And I understand why they went in that direction. And in all honesty, it's probably going to be easier for us to cover. But it's taking that fun and that possibility of us going. Like, I don't know, Ian, if you've ever been to any drafts, but I've been to quite a few, covered or as a fan, and I've enjoyed my time there so much. So like losing that, it does suck a little bit. And I do hope they bring it back in the future. And maybe they can do it a thing where it's like it's always at the Sphere or something like that. Like they pick one venue, everybody likes going to, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. The one thing about going to decentralized too is that you're going to miss moments like Beckett Seneca going, what the F? Oh my God, on camera in a legitimately heartwarming moment. One, because it meant the Canadiens were going to get Ivan Demidov or Caden Lindstrom. And another one, because I don't think he actually expected that. It's a very heartwarming moment for him, which it's a reach of a pick, not a pick I would have made. I'm going to probably put them in the loser category there for right now. But you're going to miss things like that. We're going to cut to some dude at his house and they're going to have some weird flag or something up in the background, or the dog's going to be like crapping on the floor. And that's all anyone's going to talk about, which actually would be quite funny, but I'm going to miss it all in one place. And I think it takes away from letting friends from different markets get together for that. Like Laura and I, when we had the Montreal draft, went out afterwards and I just bumped into all these people from Twitter and everywhere else. And it's a good time to get to see everybody again.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
I guess we should move into everything else that occurred, because a lot of nothing happened on day one in terms of trades.
Yeah, I sent out a tweet right before the Sergachev trade. I was like, there were 7 trades on Friday, and one of them involved a player. Do you know the player that was traded? It was Alex Texier from the Columbus Blue Jackets. We keep getting fluffed on Marty Necas could be traded at any moment. Rutger McGroarty, pack your bags, you're on your way out. And none of that stuff happens ever. And then I send that out, and 30 seconds later, Sergachev's traded to Utah. That was one of the most unpredictable trades I think I've ever witnessed. I don't know about you guys, but that materialized out of nowhere.
And Utah doubled down afterwards and got John Marino, which is a huge boost for them. They went, and I tweeted out that it's like, this is the most that an ownership group and a front office has tried to make this franchise like watchable and worthwhile in almost the entire history of the Arizona Coyotes. That's a huge deal. And Tampa, one, gets cap flexibility. Steven Stamkos is still apparently going to market, and they have interest in Jake Gensel, which sure, the Stamkos thing is not going to be popular with fans. I can tell you that much, but that's not really my problem. You deserve to suffer just a little bit for that. But getting Connor Geekie back, getting more picks and some that's a good deal for Tampa, who needed the cap flexibility, and explains the Ryan McDonagh trade at least a little bit. I don't think relying on 35-year-old Ryan McDonagh is the way to go, but in then getting John Marino from the Devils, who was like a prime bounce back candidate, is just really smart business. And then you have the Devils, who mostly just kind of crapped their pants this weekend overall, because Logan Thompson got traded, which we'll touch on that in one moment. And they traded Akira Schmid and Alexander Holtz to Vegas for Paul Cotter and a 3rd-round pick. I was beating the Alexander Holtz train when Jake Allen was potentially on the market last year when the Devils needed a goalie. Yeah. And he went for arguably roughly maybe the same area here. And I don't know much about Paul Cotter, but I don't know if I would take that over Alexander Holtz, someone who I watched terrorize the Rocket and seemed like he just wasn't given a shot in New Jersey because Lindy Ruff was, quite frankly, a terrible coach for the Devils. So like that trade to me, I don't know what the Devils' plan was this weekend, but it was not a good one.
Well, and it seems like it, and maybe this is me, messing history up a little bit, but it seems like not too long ago that the Devils had Holtz listed as an untouchable in the Timo Meier trade, right? Yep. Like they wanted the Sharks wanted him, and the Devils were like, no, this is a big part of our future, and now they're packaging him in the deal to get a 3rd-round pick and Paul Cotter. Like that's. The asset management there is horrific. Like it's just not because they might have been able to hold on to Mukmama Doolin, who I knew is a really good, like a highly thought of prospect for the San Jose Sharks. now that he came over in that Timo Meier trade, I believe. So like, they're a confusing team to me. They just seem like they're so like, I don't know, they're so fidgety. It seems very like Mark Bergevin-esque, like they can't sit still. Apparently, the Devils are going to get Brett Pesce when the free agency opens on Monday, which would make sense. You could play him with Dougie Hamilton, right? Like they played together in Carolina. So, you know, they're a confusing team to me. They could be a lottery team next year and I wouldn't be surprised. And they could be the President's Trophy winner and I wouldn't be surprised. Like the range of expected outcomes for that team is wide.
We talked about it with when you and I did the episode when they traded for Jacob Markstrom because they have Jake Allen and how this impacts the Habs. They had a lot of goalies. So Akira Schmid getting traded isn't the surprising part of this.
No.
And that's perfectly fine to go to Vegas where he's going to play behind Adin Hill, which is perfectly fine. It's the adding Alexander Holtz to this that they're going to stick him with William Karlsson or Jack Eichel or whoever the hell else is on that team. And he's probably going to thrive. And Devils fans are rightly going to be pissed off about it. Yeah. And you know what? They should. Speaking of Vegas, the minute they picked Trevor Connolly, I'm like, they're going to trade somebody to absolutely get their name off of this draft pick right now. And they traded a guy who helped get them to the Stanley Cup final when Adin Hill was injured and did it while he was signing autographs at the NHL draft. No team cares less about loyalty to players than the Vegas Golden Knights. And yes, they just won a Stanley Cup. And yes, they are always a competitive team. That is true. But oh my God, agents and players must go there and be like, well, the clock has started. How long am I here for now before I get shipped out? And good on Logan Thompson for having a good sense of humor for that. But boy, that's rough. Like, that's a real rough look.
Hattie Kalikesh was all over that pick for a long time. He was saying they're going to take Trevor Connolly because they do not care what you think about them. And he was right. Like, that is the standard operating procedure for that franchise ever since they came into the league. They do not care what you think about the Vegas Golden Knights, for better or worse. It was kind of, just disappointing to see that happen. It was interesting. I was watching the draft with a friend, and he pointed out to me that when on ESPN, they were going to the couch with Leah Hextall after every pick, and the players were being interviewed by Leah Hextall. They did not talk to Trevor Connolly. They talked to Kelly McCrimmon. They did not talk to the player. So they're trying to shield themselves from that, right? Like, rough moment for that franchise, rough moment for that fan base, I imagine. That was not fun to watch.
Yeah, and the thing is that people are going to say, is this just like Logan Mailloux? Apparently, with everything that Connolly did, he did meet with a local rabbi. He tried to make amends and work on what he did. I don't know what else that entails, but from what I've seen that he tried to do things, but the fact of the matter is, these are still things that you did that are attached to your name and your character going forward. People can change and improve. That is, I am not going to, say that you don't deserve to play in the NHL. Continue to show me that these are things. But if there was a team that was ever going to pick him, it's Vegas. Because like you said, they don't give a single crap about what anyone thinks of them, unless you're mean to them on Twitter, and then they get their feelings hurt a little bit. But they're also, I think they fired their anti-vax Twitter person. So that's kind of funny too, I guess. So I guess the last big trade is Toronto gets the rights to Chris Tanev for a 7th round pick and a prospect from Toronto, or going to Dallas for Tanev's rights. They can start negotiating with Tanev now on a contract extension. Dreger is saying it's going to be between 5 and 7 years, 7 being the max they can go because he wasn't on their team at the deadline, to which I say you should not be signing Chris Tanev at 30. How old is Chris Tanev at this point? He's not a spring chicken, I should say. He's 34 years old, says the guy who will be 34 in December. But if you are giving 7 years to that contract, you are saying, I'm going to be LTIRing this contract in 3 years' time. Immediately probably becomes Toronto's best defenseman, though.
Yeah. For the first couple of years. And it's a massive indictment on the NHL system that this is something that teams are penciling into these contracts. that they're like, yeah, we're going to give you 7 years, but you're not going to play the last 4. You're going to, we already have bought you a home on Robida Island. Like you do not need to worry about, your late 30s. You'll be paid handsomely and it won't matter to us at all. It kind of, I mean, it's icky, right? Like it just feels like this shouldn't be a thing that we're doing. Although it's not a new phenomenon, right? Like the Shea Weber contract, when Nashville signed that, it was the same idea. It was a 13-year deal right before they stopped allowing those, where they said the last couple of years, it won't matter anyway. We've front loaded this with all the money in the world, so it doesn't matter. They can't front load it anymore is the problem. I'm not worried. It's actually kind of nice because I think, like, yes, Chris Tanev steps in and becomes the best defenseman in Toronto. Like, okay, yeah, Morgan Riley's there. Who's next? Like, they might not qualify Timothy Liljegren.
That's a very stupid idea because you should.
I agree.
They have $18 million in cap space right now. Assuming that Tanev comes in at probably $5 to $6 million with term to keep that number down, you're down to then, let's say, $12 million. You have 10 forwards signed for next year. Connor Dewar, Noah Grega, and Nick Robertson are all RFAs. Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi are UFA that they want to bring back. Liljegren is an RFA, and they have Brody, UFA, Edmondson, UFA, Giordano probably retiring, Labushkin, UFA, Tanev, UFA. Joseph Woll is due a contract extension at the end of next season. You have no backup goaltender. How are you going? You're going to run into the issue of, hey, we have this other guy now. Cool. You have no depth.
Yeah.
Which, again, cool. Awesome. Love that for me. Yeah, he and Morgan Riley probably make a great first pair, but this is a team that reeks of, we're going to be real top heavy again. And if they don't get it done this year, boy, that's going to be ugly. Like, again, you didn't have to pay Ryan Reeves, $1.3 million for multiple seasons. You did not have to give David Kampf $2.5 million for 3 seasons. These are not things you had to do. And then Tavares and Marner are both up for contract, can be signed to contract extensions on July 1. Well, I don't know.
Good luck, Brad.
Good
luck.
When they described it, because Brandon Pridham's son was drafted, they said the cap wizard in Toronto. And my first thought was, I'm looking at Toronto's cap situation right now. Wizard is being very generous because once teams figured out the LTIR rules and all these other things, everybody was on the same page. Toronto is not special in that regard anymore. And nobody does it better than the Vegas Golden Knights at this point, because again, they do not care.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I know someone asked about Rutger McGroarty in the comments. Laura, do we have any other questions in there that we should get into?
Just if the Canadiens should be targeting any UFAs this season to kind of round out their spot. Also, somebody asked if there were any holes left in their rebuild. I think for me, like that, let me answer that one real quick. I think the biggest thing now is that they don't really have a specific thing that's missing. I think right now the big hole/challenge is to ensure their development works out. Like, I'm pretty pleased with the picks that they've made over the last 3 drafts that they really just need to invest in and ensure that those players attain their potential. Like, they've picked some goalies that it's going to take some time to pan out. They've picked some defensemen. And obviously, I would love a game-breaking defenseman like a Victor Hedman style, et cetera, et cetera. That, to me, is the one thing that's missing, other than the fact that trying to ensure that all of these guys pan out and hit their potential.
A thing that kind of reassured me going into free agency is that Bobrov and Hughes and Gordon all kind of agreed that we're not looking to add an older guy who's going to take space away from a prospect. That is also a signal to guys like Riley Kidney, to Sean Farrell. Joshua, despite being an NHL caliber player, still applies this, is the job is there for you if you can come and take it, basically. Yep. There are players out there that I wouldn't be opposed to. I'm looking at someone like Anthony Mantha, who was not going back to Vegas this year, said he wasn't. I'm not opposed to that, but that relies on shifting out some of these other bodies first. The Canadiens are going to be heavy on restocking the AHL farm team. I would expect potentially a coach announcement this week as well, with development camp coming up, because the AHL coach usually runs part of that on the benches for scrimmages and everything. And before they play the rookie showcase games in September, I think that there's definitely a possibility of something happening there. I'm waiting for the McGroarty shoe to drop. The Flames first round pick next year, with Florida potentially losing Ekblad and Montour and the Flames doing a partial teardown, becomes very, very interesting that Florida's losing some pillars on defense and will potentially be markedly worse. And you have the Flames tearing it down. There's a very good chance that pick could be very, very fun for the Montreal Canadiens next year and might make a really good kind of dangle for a guy like a Rutger McGroarty. That could potentially be a top 15 pick next year. And
I'm just laughing at the concept of taking Sean Monahan in and turning that into Rutger McGroarty and Hage, right? Like that's the funniest thing to me. And Sean Monahan was such a cool Montreal Canadian. Like, it was so cool to have him, and we got rewarded for having him. Like, can
twice. We got rewarded for having him twice.
It's the coolest. I will never get over that. Those are two, franchise altering decisions that really will help the Canadiens moving forward.
Kent Hughes has a chance to do the funniest thing in the world. If he signs Sean Monahan and trades him for a third time for a first round pick, I will build him I will rent Sphere, and I will put Kent Hughes's bald head on that for a day. If he signs and trades Sean Monahan for another first round pick. I don't know how expensive it is. I will figure it out, but I will absolutely do that. I will put the Sean Monahan trade conditions on Sphere, on a billboard in Montreal. I will pay to have that cap-friendly screenshot put on a billboard right when you leave the airport heading into the city from Dorval. I will put the trade conditions on there and then hashtag thank you, Kent.
I do agree with you that Calgary pick is an interesting trade chip in the case of Winnipeg trying to move on from McGroarty. I don't know that they would be interested in picks, but like, to your point, that pick holds value because of the situations in Calgary and Florida. So that'll be a fun one to watch. I don't know. They said that McGroarty isn't going to go to development camp.
Why? What happened?
Yeah, exactly. So, things are headed in that direction. They've got a player holding out from rookie development camp. Like, that's so bad. The
Capitals are apparently, by the way, in on McGroarty, which the Capitals offseason has been very confusing, but I also think that this is them getting OV to that record and nothing more. But they're apparently one of those teams that are in there for that. Development camps coming up, free agencies on Monday. Laura and I will have a full draft recap episode up regularly, according to tomorrow for Monday. We're going to go over draft grades and everything else. We will have prospect experts on. We will have live reaction to any big free agency news. I guess we should do the announcement now as well, because I did tease this at the end of last episode. So for those of you who are here, you are getting a special preview. We will have a full video about this off to the side. No ads, nothing else. Just a very down to earth kind of thing here. But this is not an announcement that is easy to make on my part. I'll keep it simplistic and explain more in the future. This will actually be my last month here with Locked On Canadiens. When the clock hits midnight on July 31st, I will be stepping back from the show. I will be here through free agency and development camp and everything else, but I am turning the reins over to Laura and a new co-host, which we will introduce in the near future. And above anything else, for those of you who are hanging out here with us and everything today, I want to say thank you. This has been the most fun 5 years I have ever had. I have seen the Canadiens go to a Stanley Cup final and then pick first overall. I have seen this fan base nearly eat itself alive over an Austrian child. And then I have seen them come together to worship Celine Dion and a child from Russia in the span of 4 years. I've done triple overtime AHL games. I've done prospect interviews. I've done radio hits and stuff from the show from gas station bathrooms. I am truly honored to have been able to do this for 5 years. And I am truly honored that I got to share this with my fantastic co-host, Laura. We have a fantastic person stepping in for me, someone that I know you will all love. This show is not going to change in any way, shape, or form. It is still going to be the Locked On Canadiens that you know and you love. And I can tell you this, I'm not changing anything about the way that I tweet anymore at all either. So I am not changing anything. Now that is out there in the world, I am expecting all of my flowers. I'm only partially kidding on that, but I want to say thank you everyone who came to hang out today as well. It was nice to get to share this coming off such a high with the draft here. Like if the draft was terrible, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing this today. It'd be a funeral in our comments, and nobody wants that. I am talking now because I don't know what my co-host is going to say. So I'm going to actually turn this over to Laura as we kind of get ready to wrap the show here too.
And I will say this is a really sad moment. Obviously, Scott and I have done the show together for 5 years. We were, one of the first people recruited by Locked On to do a hockey show. We chose to work together, and we worked really hard to build something that out of really nothing. And it is heartbreaking for me. And I had always said that I would leave when Scott left, but I'm not leaving because I'm very excited about who my co-host is going to be. And a lot of you who have listened to this show for a very long time, particularly in recent months, will have an idea as to who it's going to be. We will have an official announcement video. But, we are always going to be Locked On Canadiens. We're always going to be your podcast. We're always going to be taking the topics that you suggest for us. We're always going to be having those game recaps. We're always going to be getting emotional over picks like we did today. We're always going to be getting upset over maybe we can't really do a Scott Matla rant about officiating, but Locked On Canadiens will only continue to grow and be better. And I will truly, truly miss Scott as much as I know all of you will be, but I promise you, Locked On Canadiens will still be your show. We are not going to change who we are. We're just going to start an exciting new chapter, or I guess now it's 2024. We can't say chapter anymore. We're starting a new era. We will have a new era, and that's going to start really, really soon. So please make sure that you do join us for all our shows in July, because come the end of July, Scott is officially going to be stepping down, but he'll still come back to talk about certain things. He'll come back when, we need him to come on the show, and we miss his presence. And obviously the Buffalo Combine is like my big thing, is where Scott has to come back for that. And you will see him around, not just here, but Habs Eyes on the Prize, podcasts everywhere. He'll still be guesting, etc. So he's not going forever. He's just giving way to a fun, exciting new chapter.
Yes. I apologize that this is going to ruin the tour right now, but and if you don't know what
tour?
It is, the world tour.
What tour?
I love and appreciate all of you. We're going to wrap up the show. We have so much other draft content coming up. We're going to have Tony Ferrari on soon to go talk about everything. We're going to have Hattie and Sebastian on to talk draft picks and so much else. We're not going anywhere. Free agency is in 72 hours, less than 72 hours. Going to be plenty of chaos left for us to enjoy. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate you. Ian, make sure you follow Ian on Twitter at maybe it's Ian, because Ian rules. You can follow us at LO_Canadiens. If you have draft thoughts that you want us to read out and go over, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Go Habs go. Ivan Demidov is a Montreal Canadian. Atos Koivu is coming home. I got nothing else. Laura, let's wrap the show.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.